But first, it has been almost a year since Kremlin intelligence officers tried to kill a Russian defector in the British city of Salisbury by poisoning him with a nerve agent. That attack and subsequent death of a British woman last summer from the nerve agent scared away tourists and shoppers. As special correspondent Malcolm Brabant reports, British authorities and the townspeople are working hard to get Salisbury's economy back on track.
At Salisbury's twice-weekly market, lively sales patter and cheap prices are an irresistible lure.
Pound of punnet, strawberry, raspberry, blueberry or your seedless grape. Pound of ball, pound of punnet.
Stallholder Shane Gilks is keen to consign the poisoning to history and projects an image of confidence and normality.
Took 3 months to pick back up, but we're okay now. People have a bit more confidence now, back out in the town, and yeah, here we are, as you can see.
These two officers from the Kremlin's GRU intelligence agency are being blamed for the sharp decline of Salisbury's economy. This is CCTV footage of them in the city last March. According to the British authorities, the two agents tried to kill Russian defector Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia by smearing a tiny amount of a nerve agent called Novichok on the door of their home in Salisbury. The Skripal survived, just, but the deadly nature of the assassin's invisible weapon scared visitors away. In the market square, at a stall selling Indian street food, Tony Dakpanyan Singh is still suffering from the fear factor.
We lost at least 60%, like I said. I did 60% last day, when it happened. Then slowly a little bit picked up. Now it's like I say, still be down 30% at least every Tuesday. I'm 30%. I know other people, a lot of people struggling.
In order to prevent local businesses from going under, the county administration established an emergency fund and a task force under Pauline Church.
We keep a close eye on our businesses, and some of the investment that we put into businesses, whether it was grants or helping them with business rates, etc., that was to prevent businesses from making staff redundant or closing down. And you have to ensure that the local community remains buoyant and confident. What we really want to do is to bring visitors back to Salisbury, and that's starting to happen.
The restaurant where the Skripals dined before collapsing was closed for 8 months. It's been spruced up and is now open for business. But close to the place where the Skripals were found comatose, these shops are having a disastrous time. Staff didn't want to talk on camera, but described sales as being almost non-existent. Other retail workers talked about customers still being terrified. Sausage maker Jim Martin thinks that terror is unjustified.
I just think it seems a bit ironic that the city's got, I don't know how many thousand people living in it, 2 people and the whole of that city got it.
Colonel Hamish de Breton Gordon is a chemical weapons expert and a senior advisor to Britain's Ministry of Defence. He spent more than 30 years on battlefields around the world assessing the impact of chemical warfare.
I am pretty certain that 99% of the contamination has been identified. I mean, we've buried over 37 vehicles already. You know, hundreds of bags of contaminated material have either been incinerated or buried, and the Skripal's house in Salisbury is still being decontaminated. Apart from that, it's all gone.
The Skripals may have survived, but 44-year-old Dawn Sturgis did not. She died last July, days after spraying what she thought was perfume on her wrists. The bottle contained Novichok and had been thrown away by the assassins. Her death shattered public confidence.
This is the ultimate terror weapon. People, are fixated by it and terrified by it because the messaging, particularly from the British government, has been particularly poor. Salisbury is safe and open for business. I probably know more than most people about this. I have no qualms at all of going to Salisbury and have no fear that we'll have any more casualties.
10 miles north of Salisbury is Stonehenge, the 5,000-year-old prehistoric stone circle that's a World Heritage Site.
For many people, Stonehenge is iconic. They've travelled all the way around the world. They want to go and stand by the stones.
Stonehenge had 1.5 million visitors last year, 400,000 of whom came from North America. Normally, many would have visited Salisbury, but last year, because of Novichok, they stayed away, causing financial problems for the museum and staff like Louise Tunnard.
We're an independent charity, and so the majority of our income comes from our visitors, from our ticket sales, from people coming to use the cafe and the shop, and so the impact has been big.
The museum is intensifying efforts to win back Stonehenge visitors with improved displays. The two Russian intelligence agents claimed that Salisbury's famous attractions were the only reason they visited the city.
Our friends have been suggesting for quite a long time that we visit this wonderful city.
Salisbury? A wonderful city?
Yes.
What makes it so wonderful?
It's a tourist city. They have a famous cathedral there. Salisbury Cathedral. It's famous throughout Europe and in fact throughout the world, I think.
There's little prospect of ever bringing the Russians to justice, but their legacy lingers. The authorities in Salisbury may be putting a brave face on how business is improving, but it's clear that nearly 1 year after the Novichok attack, some traders are still suffering. The worry for terrorism experts, though, is that Salisbury has become a template for rogue governments or extremist groups which want to inflict maximum damage with a similar invisible deadly weapon. As memories of attacks at the Bataclan Club in Paris and Berlin's Christmas market fade with the passing years, chemical weapons expert Hamish de Bretton-Gordon fears a new terrorist outrage inspired by Salisbury.
The impact of this tiny amount of agent, it's fixated the world for 10 months. The jihadis, the so-called Islamic State, the dark web, people running it at the moment are telling jihadis around the world to use chemical weapons, be it in the UK or the US or elsewhere. So that has had a profound effect. And of course, we've seen the jihadis using chemical weapons frequently in Syria and Iraq.
De Bretton-Gordon believes mainland Europe is at greatest risk because jihadis are able to move across frontiers more easily than in Britain or America.
What I would say to American people is that they should not worry unduly. I've recently run a conference and an exercise with the Mayor of New York's office looking at exactly this sort of thing. And actually the US is probably better prepared than virtually any other country in the world to deal with this sort of thing.
Nearly 1 year after the attack, staff at Salisbury Cathedral hope that visitors will start flocking back to see its copy of the Magna Carta, the 13th century human rights document which paved the way for democracy in Britain. Salisbury's sense of resilience is embodied by the museum's Louise Tunnard.
It was a dreadful attack on the heart of our society, on human beings, real people. That was quite devastating. But there reaches a point where you have to pick yourselves up and carry on. We live here. We're bringing up children here. We're growing old here. We're falling in love here. That's how we have to carry on.
And with that attitude, the Novichok attack will eventually become another footnote in thousands of years of rich history. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Malcolm Brabant in Salisbury.